intention, which is, as always, the healing of our minds, our restoration to joy, to sanity, to inner peace. We recognize that we have been drawn together this evening by the power and in the presence of God. And it is to God that we devote our time spent together, as well as our relationships to one another, knowing that the Holy Spirit within us will so guide us in our thoughts and in our feelings and in our perceptions of all things, that we may go to sleep tonight as happier, more peaceful, and more loving beings. For this we are thankful, and together we all say, Amen. Welcome. As we continue on, remember there is a dynamic something in the universe that responds to our thoughts and our feelings and our attitudes. It's already working. We're here to talk tonight about how to work with it more joyfully. Now, I used to say this a lot in the classes, so it's a good time to bring it up again. Everybody who is here, everybody who's listening to me, already has all the peace, all the joy, all the abundance, all the love, all the health, any good thing that you will ever have. You will never have any more than you have right now unless you change. That's really how that works. I can say that I would like to go swimming, but I don't want to get wet, but that really wouldn't work. And so, when we set an intention to have more, as we've talked about these decisions, or we've made decisions like, I've decided to be happy, I've decided to be healthy, I've decided to be joyous, I've decided this, then what that's going to require for us is to go through the things that we don't want to go through, that keep us from already experiencing that. So, as we've talked about this idea of courage, there's no such thing as courage if you don't have fear. Otherwise, you're just doing something that you would do. You have courage because you're doing something you're afraid of. And we're all afraid of different things. And so it would be no big deal to me to jump out of an airplane, because that doesn't really scare me, but it doesn't excite me either. So it wouldn't require a great deal of courage for me to do something like that. So each of us has our own little ways where we have our little bugaboos of things we don't want to do. And it's those things that we don't want to do, that we don't want to face, that we don't want to walk through, that we've talked about a little bit in these last couple of weeks. We read the letter last week from the girl who was even talking about just having dinner parties, right? I mean, I'm sure somewhere there in her mind, I'd like to have more socialness, I'd like to have this, I'd like to have that. But there is a resistance that you have to go through in order to have that experience. And this also kind of applies to that thing that we talk about from time to time that I read every now and then from the psychotherapy handbook that says that the ego's idea of therapy is, I want to retain all my judgments and all my fear and all of that stuff without any of the bad side effects of it. That's the ego's idea of therapy. And that's the ego's idea of prayer as well. I want a miracle, but I want the miracle to be imposed in such a way that I don't have to change. I want it to just happen without me changing. But of course, the Course in Miracles says learning is change. So when we're learning something, we are changing. And so it is our willingness to walk through whatever is our fear or our resistance that allows us to move to the next level of peace or joy or love or whatever it is. So all the affirmations in the world and all the treasure mapping and visioning and all in the world is not going to do anything if we think it's just going to happen without us moving through whatever that wall of resistance is. So I'll tell the story. Many people know aspects of it, but I'll tell the story of, as we began this, of course, one of the wonderful lessons in the Course is, all things are lessons God would have me learn. It's important for us to recognize that is not, again, we we have to be careful that we're not making God into a man in the sky who's saying, I want you to learn this. Because the lesson is all the same. It's all the form is the only thing that's different. But the lesson is there's only just a couple of little lessons. They just come in whatever is the form that will hit us best. But the lessons are all about love and forgiveness and the peace of God and all of that. So it will just come in whatever form is the area of life where we're, to some degree, blocking that. And when I say blocking that, I don't want you to think about, like, you have some huge wall that's not letting any of it in, because that's not true. It's just these little barriers, usually, because we're letting in all the areas of our life, all of these things. But I've often said that new thought is about getting more out of life. That's really what it's about. It's about getting more out of life. So we all have joy in our lives, but the idea is we want to allow more joy. So it's not like we have some huge wall that doesn't let any joy in. It's that we just have these little ways that we don't quite let joy in. So what that means is that when we decide, I want to experience more life and get more out of life, then what's going to arise are opportunities for us to walk through our fear or resistance. And how we walk through that fear and resistance is everything. That's it. It's how we walk through it. Because one of the horrifying aspects of this sort of self-help movement is that what was thought and is still practiced in a lot of ways is this idea that you just blast through your fear. You blast through your resistance. That's kind of I hate to say it, that's the Anthony Robbins, like, just get your adrenaline fucking going and then walk across hot coals. Like that kind of stuff, where you're blasting through some kind of fear. But that's not really helpful. That's just getting your adrenaline up and pushing through something that you have not really changed your consciousness, really. It's like a temporary kind of fix. So, I mean, even last week when we were here, I already had this situation with my eye going on. And so it continued on and got crazy as the days went on. So I'll tell a little bit of the story about that and how that applies to all of this, so that you can see through where I got it right, where I didn't get it quite so right, and all that stuff, to see how this operates. So that was Tuesday night. At the time, I didn't have a doctor. So by the next day, it had gotten so much worse that I decided I better go see a doctor. Well, because I was a new patient, it was going to take 2 days. I didn't have an appointment until Friday, I guess. And it was a place that's close enough for me to walk. I thought, well, this is great because I'm sort of one-eyed now, so I would like to be able to walk to this doctor's and he'll do whatever. And I figured by that point I probably needed antibiotics or something. So I went and I walked up there, and the first lesson here, now remember, if your idea is all things are lessons God would have me learn, then we don't want to just go through life unconsciously. You have to look to see, what am I learning now? And remember, the Course in Miracles says it's up to you what kind of student you are. So you can learn through joy or you can learn through pain. That doesn't say that joyful things are happening or painful things will happen. It says you will perceive them so that they will be either joyful or painful. In life, you're going to have pain. You're going to have a certain kind of suffering. But what we learn through our spiritual practice is how to walk through that pain and suffering so that we are not the victims of it, right? So I went up to the doctor's, and I went in, and so I was wearing sunglasses so that I didn't horrify people, because by now it was really bad. Okay, and so I went in, saw the doctor, and he was saying all this stuff, and they didn't want to really do anything to me because it was my eyelid. And they felt like, I'm just a general doctor, and you should see maybe an ophthalmologist because we're afraid we might damage the eye and all this stuff. So we're going to send you to the emergency room. Well, now I'm on foot, so I'm going to have to walk from the doctor's up in Sunset down to Cedars-Sinai, the emergency room. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I don't want to do this. So that's my first resistance. I don't want to do this. I want to be healed, but I don't want to do this. Okay? That's how we go. Is this not how we go through life? I want this, but I don't want to do that. Okay? I want this, but I don't want to do that. So that was the first sort of essence of something coming up. And then he called in this nurse. Now, this is a pretty much all gay practice, so everybody there is gay, gay, gay. And so he brings in this big bear of a gay nurse who was like, I never can tell how old anyone was. I felt like he was older than me, and he was just huge. And so every time something, I put my sunglasses back on. And so the doctor was done examining, I put my sunglasses back on. He calls in this male nurse to say, we're going to send, what do you think? And he says, take off your sunglasses. I took off my sunglasses, and he went, oh, and he just embraced me. I mean, I met him 2 seconds ago, and he just embraced me and said, oh. And I just thought, this is odd. Like, this is so weird. Like, this is very not what you expect in, like, a doctor's office from strangers. But that was the first beginning of the recognition that the one big lesson for me, which is probably a lesson for all of us, is that there is love everywhere. There is love everywhere. So everywhere we go, if we are just in that moment, and because what was happening to me, anytime when you're sick or something like that, I was more vulnerable. Later, testy, because this is really how you get, right? You can be in a situation, you'll get vulnerable or you'll get defensive. So you could see, basically, instantly, we see almost instantly how our consciousness affects the world around us. So in those moments, it was early on in the day. It was like 11:30 when I had my appointment. So vulnerable enough, love is coming in. I'm still like, oh, this is great, and I'm making the best of things, and so on and so forth. Then I walk down to Cedars. It's like 85 degrees. I'm walking down to Cedars, going to the emergency room. Everyone there's freaking out about Ebola. I've never been to an emergency room before. This is everything I don't ever want to experience. This is perfect. I mean, this is perfect because this is how it happens. You say, I want more life, I want more joy, I want more freedom, I want more serenity, I want more of whatever it is. Well, then all of the resistance that we have, all the things as long as that doesn't happen, as long as this doesn't come up, I don't want to have to face that or go through that. So everything's happening all at once. I mean, just the week before that, it was the computer crashing and losing everything. All these things that I just don't want to have happen. We talked about this before, the difference between saying to spirit, I'm letting spirit handle this, and saying, I don't want to deal with this now. So all of these were things I don't want to deal with. I don't want to go to the doctors at all. I don't want to have anything to do with that. I don't want to have to go to the emergency. All this stuff. But walking through it, right? Staying in all this stuff we fucking talk about. Now, I have my spiritual toolbox out, and I'm just fucking looking like crazy. I'm pulling out every fucking thing. Because that's what you do. Like, that's what it's for. Otherwise, why do we have it? What's the point? So I'm like, I've consulted a higher authority. Lots can happen. All things are held perfectly in the hands of God. All of this stuff. Basically, what am I doing? I'm massaging my thoughts, and I'm soothing myself. All along the way, walking through my fear. Because my mind is going through, I don't want them, because the doctor was saying, I don't think they'll admit you. What we need is for you to get on IV antibiotics, because it'll take 2 days for oral antibiotics to go through, and you don't have that kind of time. Because they were freaking out, maybe you're going to go blind, because if it's behind your eye, we don't know what it is, because your face is swollen and all this shit. And I'm just like, I've consulted a higher authority. Okay, I don't want to be committed to the hospital. I'm willing. Okay, so I'm talking down. And you're sitting there and you're surrounded by the great sea of humanity in Cedars-Sinai ER. Like you're just there and you're just like saying, I'm fine. Because what's happening is when we're studying this stuff all the time, as we are, because I told this to Zan later, I said, it was horrible, but not really. Because that was really the truth of it. Because the ego part of my mind was going, well, this was just awful. And then as I was thinking about it, I was like, it was just as easy as fucking could be. Because it really was. I didn't like it, though. See, that's what makes it hard. Remember how we talk about we make things hard? Right? Because the story, I could tell the story of how awful it was, but to be really truthfully honest about it, it was not. I mean, I kept thinking about, here I have full insurance coverage, and I'm like within walking distance of everything pretty much that I need to go to, and everybody's really nice. I was thinking about, what if I'd been on vacation in some third world country or something and this happened? Like, I was thinking about all the ways that it could be bad. This is what we do. We start to talk to ourselves about this because, listen, our fear and our resistance is irrational. So that means that the answer is to become rational, to start to look more rationally at. Now, what was great about it, we always have like the grace of God around us, is that I was doing this for myself. Because God knows if there'd been somebody else there spouting metaphysical principle to me, I would have punched him in the fucking throat. Right? You're like, okay, let me do this myself. Somebody else was telling me, okay, this could be worse, and I'd be like, fuck you, it's not happening to you. Okay? Like that thing where, that's why we say, when somebody is in trouble, the best thing to say is, I'm so sorry that's happening to you. Is there anything I can do? And that was another miracle, because one of the things that I was doing was I was posting about it on Facebook while a lot of it was happening. And a lot of the responses that I was getting was exactly like that. Oh no, I'm sorry, this is happening to you. Is there anything I can do? Because also, the thing is to, as a metaphysician, is not to hide anything. Because we've talked before about how many metaphysical teachers hide when they're sick, hide when they're having financial problems, hide all of these things, instead of saying, this is what's happening, and this is how I'm doing it, and this is where I'm getting it right, and this is where I'm getting it wrong. This is where I'm working on it, this is where it's going well. So I was checking in, like, this is what's going on, this is where I am, this is what's happening. And I really only lost it once. And that was by the time they had taken me out of the waiting room into an actual room in the ER, and I sat there for a couple hours while they just didn't know what to do with me. And they kept going back and forth, and nobody there, they didn't want to touch me either because it's your eye, and they were trying to get somebody to come in, and they would say something and then disappear for half an hour. So they had said to me then, we want you to go, like the ER ophthalmologist wants you to go to him. He doesn't want to come in here, he's at his office over on Camden. And I'm like, I'm fucking walking! That was when I lost it. For a second, I was like, I can't walk over to Camden and Beverly Hills. So then I was like, oh, okay, that was really not what I meant to say. I didn't know my gun was loaded. So I recovered from that pretty fast of like, okay, sorry about that. I'll take a cab over to Camden, which I did. But that was really the only time I really lost it, after kind of sitting there for a long time, just calming myself with fear and all this. So I go over there, and everything that I don't want to have happen is happening there. Like he's, jamming needles in my eye to put to anesthese it, like over and pinching it and then scraping. This is, I know, a lovely conversation. Scraping out all of this stuff and just all of this stuff. But by this time I called Zan because she works just a couple of blocks from there. And it was so amazing how the perfection of everything, because I was just finishing my day. This was by like close to 6 o'clock at the Beverly Hills office when she's getting off work. So it was all just like the perfect timing. She drove me. I went to the pharmacist. I got there just before they were closing to have the prescriptions filled. All of these things. Came home. I had a big patch on my eye. I posted pictures of that. And I was like, okay, soothing myself. I'm good. I'm fine. Get up the next day. He says, take off the patch in the morning. It has come back 100%, just like it was before. And so he had told me, if anything, you can call me. So I had to call him. And this was another thing, because I was talking to Zan about this, where I don't like inconveniencing people. And I knew it was his day off. And I called him, and we went back and forth, me talking to him. He was like, I can come in, try to do it yourself. Here's what I want you to do. I was doing this. It was making me crazy because I was trying to pull the scab off, and I was getting nauseous, and I was like, wanted to die. But part of me was guilty of like, I don't want him to have to come in, and I don't know what he's doing, and all this stuff. So again, the resistance of, I want to be healed, but I don't want to. It's all the things I don't want to. I don't wanna, I'm afraid to, I shouldn't have to, like all of that is just what keeps us from the miracle. I don't want to inconvenience anybody, I don't want to ask for help, I don't want to, all of whatever is your thing, that's the little wall. That's that thing of, I'd like to go swimming, I don't want to get wet. That's all I'm asking. I just want it to work in a way that it doesn't work. So, I just kept moving through that. So he came in, he did it over again. He said, I'm going to put packing in it so that it will stay open and continue to drain, and you'll have to leave it on then all weekend and come in on Monday and we'll take it out. So, okay, fine. Now I'm walking around all over town, not all over, but all over West Hollywood with just one eye, with this huge bandage. And it was so amazing how, because again, I knew that part of the lesson of this was there is really love and kindness everywhere. It was so amazing how nice people were to me. And people who never talked to me. I swear a homeless woman said to me, are you okay? I was like, oh my God, dude, that is insane. Do I look that pathetic? Because I thought I was smiling and happy. And she's like, are you okay? So people were coming from all over to talk to me and be nice to me and ask what happened. Some guy who was like 98 said to me, did you have cataract surgery? I was like, that's it. I'm officially fucking old now. The old people think I've had cataract surgery. That happened when I was at lunch. And so at Café de Troyes. As I'm walking back one-eyed from Café de Troyes, and I had flip-flops on, I tripped on the curb and cut my toe, which started to bleed. And right at that moment, that was the miraculous moment. Because in that moment, it came to me, you better fucking clean up your vibration right now, because the worse it gets, the worse it gets. That's exact. Because what here is, now this, see, I'm sure at some level you've had this experience before, is that you think you're doing well. And that thought in itself is often a problem, because what you're thinking is I'm handling these horrible things well. But that right there is the problem, that you think these are horrible things. I'm handling this horrible thing, and this horrible thing, and this horrible thing, and this horrible thing. So what you're doing is you're setting up the momentum of all these worse things are happening. And the worse it gets, the worse it gets. So I had to go straight into, oh no, it is my perception that these are horrible things. Because I can very easily, which I did as soon as I fucking got home, as I was cleaning up my vibration, I started to write down the positive aspects of this entire experience. Why this is such a blessing in my life. And then I just started going through all of the amazing things that happened. I would never have gotten a hug from that nurse. I got free croissants at Starbucks from the girl who works there, because she was like, I'm buying your croissant today. I mean, just shit was happening. It was just like, okay, here we go. We're going to take you. I mean, you know, even from going from Cedars, this was like a Beverly Hills eye plastic surgeon who specializes in this kind of shit that I ended up going to. All of this stuff had that wasn't even charged because it was part of the emergency room charge that I only had $100 copay on. So all of these things that it was easy once I started to say, all of these things are part of this process that once you make a decision, then what's going to happen is anything that's your wall of fear and resistance has to be dissolved. If you want to swim, you're going to have to get over your fear of being wet. Now, I mention that because as a kid, we had a creek behind our house that we would swim in the summer. In fact, my parents would have a big bulldozer come and dig it out so that it would be deep enough for us to swim, because it was kind of shallow. So all the kids would come and swim, but it was a creek, so it was fucking freezing cold water almost all summer long, because it was all water that had come, from natural spring water that had come into this creek. So it would take me forever to get in the water. And by that I mean hours. I would sometimes just sit for 4 hours while everyone was swimming because it was too fucking cold for me to get in. And I would usually finally get in 20 minutes before everybody was done for the day. So I wanted to swim, I wanted to play, I wanted to have fun, but I didn't want to be cold. That's the thing that stops us. This is what we've been talking about, this idea of, it's not necessarily the terror that stops us, but just the little resistance of, what will somebody say about this? What will so-and-so think about that? What will that look like to other people? All of these things that are the things that literally stop us from just the joy, the peace, the love, all that we could be experiencing at any given day. And so it just is then becoming aware. All things are lessons God would have me learn. What's the lesson that's coming up now? And this is the thing we really have to get about this when we talk about lessons, because too often people think, I want to know what's the lesson so I can get it so it'll be fucking over. That just locks it into place. It is the absolute surrender to, if this, I heard this TV minister, and so born again Christians, they believe that Jesus is coming back, to save us all. That's the second coming. He will come back and do such and such. And I remember her telling this story about how with her husband had bought this car, and it was like a classic car, and he hardly ever drove it. And it was like, she was saying, we're too old to have a car like that. We're in our early 70s. It shakes and rattles, and our bones are getting rattled all around anyhow, and it just sits there, and it's a waste of space. And so I started talking to him about getting rid of that car. And the more I talked about getting rid of that car, the more he kept that car. And so it was a big deal to me about the money and the expense, and I harangued on it for a couple of years until finally I got, you know what? I can't change him. It's not my job to fix him or change him, and it's destroying my peace of mind. So she said, he can keep that car till Jesus comes back. That's so stuck in my head of like the total surrender of, I can have a big pussy growth on my eyelid till Jesus comes back. Like, it is not about getting rid of this condition, because it is the fighting to get rid of this condition, to just get this dealt with, make it happen, get it over, get to the next thing that makes life unfucking bearable. And that was the recognition, because we talk here all the time about patience is not a fucking lesson. Patience is how you move through a lesson. So what I got, which was another huge lesson for me, was slow the fuck down. And that was, when you have one eye, it's hard to move fast if you're not used to it. Now, if you've only had one eye for a while, you probably move pretty fast, but when it's new, you better fucking slow down. You're going to trip over the curb. You're going to have a lot of issues. So I realized right away it was time to slow down. Now, what's not fascinating, and now I'm becoming like Ernest Holmes, where you have a lot of hyperbole about everything. What's fascinating, what might be mildly interesting, is that if someone looked at me, it wouldn't look like I move that fast. Because all of my fast moving is happening in my head. Because you can be sitting in a fucking chair and your mind is going like turbo. Just like you can look totally peaceful sitting there in a chair and your mind is just like you're 10 years into the future or whatever. You're everywhere except here. And so most of my fast moving is, and certainly a lot of it has to do with just running this intergalactic ministry, because there's a lot of things that have to be done in a certain way for me to stay on top of it. And so I'm oftentimes ahead of, then I'm going to do this, I'm going to print the labels, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, all this stuff that doesn't even need to be going on in my head because it's been going on for so long. And part of the gifts of all of the things that happened as I was moving through was that I let go of a lot of that. That was the slowing down. The slowing down was not that it was taking me longer to walk somewhere. The slowing down was the slowing down of all the stories in my mind. All of the little ways that we just block an experience without knowing we're blocking it. We don't know we're blocking things. We don't know. Now, see, what's fascinating to me about this is the metaphor of all of this, because I had to go half blind in order to see. Now, tomorrow, they're coming and putting all new windows in here and sliding glass doors. So in both of those instances, see, what we want, what the ego wants, what it thinks of as prayer and change, is a completely different view out there, right? I want this job to clear up. I want my body to change and heal. I want this, all of this. But the healing is not a different vista, but a different lens, right? I'm not going to have a different view out of these new windows. I don't have a different view out of my eye. There were times when I couldn't, they kept testing my vision in this left eye, and I was like, well, I can't see out of it because it's half swollen shut. So you're not getting a real great, reading. It's not because that was, they were, like I said, they were concerned it could be orbital this, and is it in fact, they wanted to make sure it was just my eyelid, that it was not something of the eye. Well, when the swelling went down and I could see again, it was an experience of like, I don't live in a different place, it's not a different city, but I began to see differently. The experience didn't change anything around me. Now, what have we talked about here for weeks now? That the real prayer is not for something different. The real prayer is for the recognition of what's already here. What's already here that I don't see because I'm so busy looking at everything I've already looked at 10 fucking million times. I just see what I see because that's what I've seen. And so I don't see anything different than that. Even though there's lots of other things around me, my eye doesn't fall on that. Why? Because of my perception. So this idea of like, I have to change internally in order to have the experience of getting more out of life. Not because suddenly more will be rushing to me, but because I will see all the things that I've overlooked. All the things I've overlooked. All the people who were there. There weren't new people. I mean, there are people I see at Starbucks all the time who'd never said anything to me who started talking to me. Well, why was that? It was because I was more vulnerable. That's all. It was because I was more vulnerable. Now, I could have been more defensive. Like I said, when you feel somehow that you have a problem, that's what we go, either one of those two directions usually. We become softer and more vulnerable, or we become more defensive, right? I've got to grab hold of the situation, I've got to take charge of this, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to But I kept saying, if this is the way it is till Jesus comes back, I'm going to be at peace with this. I'm going to keep moving forward, I'm going to do what the doctor says. If I have to check into the hospital, I'm going to check into the hospital, and all I'm going to think about are the positive aspects of it. That's why, it was so great when I got that text from Mandy and she said, oh yeah, I checked into Cedars, but because I'm under the care of a surgeon, I'm in a VIP suite, everything's great. Right? She'd gone right to, let's just go right to the positive aspect of this. Let's just go right, because you can tell the story. Because we're tempted. Oh my God. When you're walking in the 85-degree heat with the one eye from the doctors to the emergency room, you're going, well, of course, I have no family here. I'm thousands of miles away. I'm single. I'm all by myself in the world. I don't know if you've ever felt sorry for yourself. Anybody? Anyone? And even if it was coming up, I was like, that is such a lie. Because we do this enough to know the lie that you're telling yourself of, but how often do we just go with it? That's right. And it's all my fault too. Because if I would have just done this, I would be in a relationship, or I would have this, or I would have that, and you just go, well, now where are we gonna go with this? Because like we say, you can sit in this chair and you can look over this way and tell the story about how it's the worst thing that ever happened and your life is a disaster, or you can look over this way and talk about how you're blessed and all's well. Without any fucking thing out there changing at all. All right. So, I want to read a little bit from Ernest Holmes in the Science of Mind text. This is one of my very favorite sections. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm very close. You're very close. I was thinking of that the other day. You're very close. She said, this was years ago. This is a soother for you. Zan and I went to her brother Joey's house. This was in the 80s. I still think of this frequently, where we had gotten there before he was coming home. And I don't even know, his husband Charles, they both have fabulous cars, so they were both like Mercedes or something like that. Charles' car was already in the lot, and Joey comes pulling in, and he's so excited to see Zan that he crashes his Mercedes into Charles' Mercedes. And Zan goes, calm as a cucumber, goes, "You're very close." Thanks for the heads up. Okay, thanks for the heads up. Thank God. Okay. So, this is in the chapter of mental equivalence. Stay with the one and never deviate from it. Never leave it for a moment. Nothing else can equal this attitude. To desert the truth in the hour of need is to prove that we do not know the truth. When things look the worst, that is the supreme moment to demonstrate to ourselves that there are no obstructions to the operation of truth. When things look the worst is the best time to work, the most satisfying time. The person who can throw himself with a complete abandon into the limitless sea of receptivity, having cut loose from all apparent moorings, is the one who will receive the greatest reward. I always do remember that idea of when things are the worst is the most satisfying time to do your spiritual work. And that is, of course, our interpretation of what the worst is. This book, Mindfulness, coincides with, we've talked about how the crazy serendipity, once you're focused on something, how it's everywhere. So I had seen this, the woman who wrote this is the one that we talked about who did that experiment with people where they put them in a place where it was 30 years before for a week, and everything around them was from the 1980s, and they changed, their whole biology changed because they were in this attitude of the past. So I got, this is the 25th anniversary of this book, so I ordered it. Don't you fucking know how much of it is about decisions? Making decisions. Making decisions. And the power of making decisions. Because again, through this whole process, every step of the way, I was making decisions. Now, I wasn't aware every single second that that's actually what was happening, but we're making decisions all the time. So you're making a decision the whole time that you're going along of whether this is the worst thing that ever happened, or this is a blessing, or anything else. You're making a decision of how you're going to respond to it, who you're going to be in the situation, what you're going to focus on, how you're going to let it make you feel, whether you're going to throw yourself into visualizing a future of catastrophe or a future of like I was even saying, every hand that touches me is a healing hand. I mean, I pulled out the Louise Hay and the Neville and every fucking thing I knew, and it was all helping. All of it was helping. All of it was just, as we say, Louise Hay says, it's only a thought, and a thought can be changed one thought at a time. What's the thought that's arising now? What's the thought that's arising now? So how perfect in his chapter 6, Mindful Aging. Age is such a potent marker that whatever happens to our minds and bodies in later life, we assume it to be the result of advancing years. I love that. We've talked about that before. When you're young and you hurt yourself, you just go, oh yeah, I hurt myself. You hit a certain age and you go, oh, that's the beginning of my decline. Right? You have something like you have a pain in your knee when you're 20, you think it's a pain in your knee. You have a pain in your knee when you're 50, that's my arthritis starting up. Like your mind just goes that way because we're taught to believe certain things. And that's what a lot of this book is about. This idea of mindfulness is, listen, wait, I should read this because it's so fabulous. This is in the new introduction. In the 1970s, as social psychology was experiencing what was called the cognitive revolution, studying the kinds of thoughts people were having, I began to wonder whether people were thinking at all. And what she says is what I realized was people aren't thinking most of the time, they're just reacting. And mostly we're reacting to what we already believe to be true. That we're not really making a conscious decision based on being mindful of what's happening right now. We're instead coming from all the other times we were dumped in a relationship. She even says, I love where she says, we may dislike someone simply because he or she shares the first name of someone we once disliked. And we're not even aware of that. We just don't like something about them. Just irks me the wrong way. So mindfulness. If older people do anything the least bit unusual, we label it eccentricity or senility, even if they've been doing the same thing all their lives. Within such constricting mindsets, tight as an undersized suit of armor, growth, flexibility, and new enterprise become impossible. Not only the quality, but the length of our lives may be affected. Control and survival. The costs of mindlessness and the potential benefits of increasing mindfulness became particularly clear to me while conducting research with the elderly. In 1976, with Judith Rodin, a colleague from Yale, I explored the effects of decision-making and responsibility on residents in a nursing home. We divided the residents into an experimental and a control group. Those in the experimental group were emphatically encouraged to make more decisions for themselves. We tried to come up with decisions that mattered and at the same time would not disturb the staff. For example, these residents were asked to choose where to receive visitors, inside home or outdoors, in their rooms, in the dining room, in the lounge, and so on. They were also told that a movie would be shown the next week on Thursday and Friday, and that they should decide whether they wanted to see it, and if so, when. In addition to choices of this sort, residents in the experimental group were each given a house plant to care for. They were to choose when and how much to water the plants, whether to put them in the window or shield them from too much sun, and so forth. This group was contrasted with members of a comparison group who were also given plants but were told that the nurses would take care of them. Those in the comparison group were not encouraged to make decisions for themselves, but were told that the staff was there to help them in every way possible. For example, if they wanted to visit with people inside the home or outside the home, in their room, in the dining room, or a lounge, we suggested that they tell a member of the staff who would help them arrange it. We tried to make the issues between the two groups as similar as possible, except for the distinction about who was responsible and in control. Before the experiment began, and 3 weeks after it ended, we used various behavioral and emotional measures, so blah, 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 blah. 18 months after the study, we went back to the nursing home and took the same measures. The residents who'd been given more responsibility still took more initiative and were significantly more active, vigorous, and sociable than the others. When Judith Rodin gave a lecture at the nursing home, she found that those who participated actively and asked the most questions came from the experimental group. At that time, we also measured the residents' physical health. While before our study began, the health evaluation ratings of the two groups, based on their medical records, had been the same, 18 months later, the health of the experimental group had improved while that of the comparison group had worsened. That's the power of just making decisions and being responsible for the decision. Of saying, I've decided to be happy. I've decided to have a good attitude. I've decided to go for it in this area of my life. I've decided that I don't care what people think about me starting a business at this age. I've decided that I'm going to, whatever, all of those things, those and even those things that I've decided to have people over for dinner next week. I've decided all of those things begin to, listen, the way that Ernest Holmes describes it is that the demand sets law into action. that that's how cause and effect works, that you make a demand on the law and the law responds, and that's how evolution happens. So that's what he always used to say, when we needed fingers, we got them. So, but when you look at like the evolution of any particular species, is what makes a species go extinct is when they do not adapt to their changing environment. So the way that you continue on to evolve as physical beings, but as spiritual beings as well, is that you adapt to an ever-changing environment. Because everything is changing all the time. As we keep adapting to the changes, that's our growth. The demand is, you say you want this, now you're going to have to walk through your resistance to that. All the ways that you don't, I mean, just with myself, I try not to get too personal. I used to say a lot of personal things in the lectures, but then people would get distracted by my story, not think about them fucking selves. And you're supposed to be thinking about you and not me. I'm just doing it as an example, and then you apply it to yourself. So I don't want to get too specific, but I've made a lot of decisions lately. I want to experience this and this and this and this and this. So it makes sense that all of this stuff would start to happen that are not directly related to that thing. You see what I'm saying? It's not a direct related of like, well, because you want this, you're going to have to go see a doctor. It has nothing to do with that. It's just the resistance to it. That any resistance at all creates resistance everywhere. It's not specific resistance. It's any resistance at all creates resistance everywhere. Wherever you're not willing to move, it's holding you back everywhere to some degree. Right? So it's that thing of, are you going to do it now or are you going to do it later? That's why, I was saying Debbie Ford, in the brilliance of The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, where she had all these little sayings where she said, what you can't be with won't let you be. What you can't be with will not let you be. Until you can be in that space of, I'm willing to surrender, to walk through this until Jesus comes back, or whatever is the thing for you, where you're just saying, if I have to, whatever it, it is all of that, but on an inner plane, right? Like all the things that I did were physical, but if I had just bulldozed through that, I would not have experienced growth. The growth came from being conscious and mindful of myself through every step of it as best I could be. Seeing when I was resistant, seeing when I was in fear, seeing when I was surrendering, and feeling the difference in my emotional journey as I went. I could have I can make myself just shut down and do shit. But that doesn't give you any growth at all. We've all done that before, where you go, I will just shut down and do this on automatic to get fucking through it. You're not growing when you're doing that. You're just steeling yourself with defensiveness and letting it fall over you. Listen, do you know what I watched? Because I watch TV so you don't have to. Is the Lance Armstrong documentary that's on HBO right now. I have to remember what it's called because the title is every fucking thing. Stop at Nothing. Because that's the exact opposite of what we're talking about. It is that thing where you have no internal growth at all, but you shut down because all you want is to get what you fucking want. I just need to have this no matter what. And listen, I don't care about sports. I don't care about competition. I didn't really know any of the shit that was going on with all of that while it was going on, except what I saw just were major news stories of like, he's denying it, and then, okay, well, he's busted now, and he's admitted it, and da-da-da. But when you watch this documentary and you see how he, like, sociopathically, fucking vehemently, calmly lied and betrayed best friends to their fucking face with, like, just insanely, pathologically, dementedly of, I have to, and it was so indicative of an illness, I think it's a mental illness, really, is this when people are raised in a certain, I don't even know how poor he was, but they live in that Scarlett O'Hara mindset of, as God is my witness, I'll never be hungry again. You see that, and people look at that like it's good. But she fucked her whole life up with that attitude of, as God is my witness, I'll never be hungry again. So she fucking screwed over everybody and ended up miserable and alone. That's why I was so upset the way that she was revered when she died. That was Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers had so much wealth. They're talking about the tens of millions of dollars that she had, and she lived like she was poor mentally, even though she lived in enormous luxury. That's what she's talking about in this book, mindfulness. She had no mindfulness at all. She was just reacting to a past that happened 60 years ago. Well, this was Lance Armstrong, basically, as he and his mother had grown up in poverty, and so the only thing that mattered to him was winning and money. And that was really the beginning for him, was when that first thing where he was going to get $1 million was that, honey, it was all fucking over from that point. Once that $1 million was flashed in front of him, he was gonna, whatever it takes, stop at nothing. So that's sometimes the error that's made in the self-help or growth movement. That's sort of the Anthony Robbins thing of stop at nothing. That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about just make it fucking happen. We're not talking about that. That is the extreme opposite of what we're talking about. We're talking about an inner journey that oftentimes requires outer action. And usually the outer action is the one fucking thing we just don't want to do. I shouldn't have to. Why is it always me? Shouldn't it be somebody else this time? Like, whatever it is that we tell ourselves, that I just don't. I want everything to be healed, but I don't want to do that one thing. Terry Cole Whitaker used to say, the thing you're waiting to have happen before you make the commitment happens after you make the commitment. And the thing you're waiting to have happen before you make the commitment happens after you make the commitment. After you've said, if I have to be in the situation until Jesus comes back, then that's what I'm going to do. That's when things shift. But what we're in is like, as soon as I'll see what happens. I mean, that's the ego viewpoint. We'll see what happens. That is just the sister of hope. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. From that level of we'll see what happens. When we say we'll see what happens, we're saying we'll see what happens after I've done all my inner work and done whatever I need to do to move through my fear or resistance. Then we'll see what happens. Not we'll see what happens and then I'll decide if I'm going to move through my fear and my resistance. We'll see. Well, we'll see till we get a guarantee of da-da-da or whatever. All right. I was listening again to that, Rusty's World. In Rusty's World, I was listening to that because, you got to take, when you're cleaning up your vibration, you got to clean up your vibration. You got to hear the things that make you feel good. Nothing's more important than I feel good. And in that, where Esther Ham at the end is talking about, the bird. She wanted to see Jerry and she wanted to hear Jerry, and this non-physical thing wasn't enough. And then the bird started talking to her and all this stuff. And she was like, oh, that's the essence of Jerry and all this stuff. And she was talking to this guy and saying, and this is really good, when you really get this, is when things are good, milk the fuck out of it. So when things are good, just milk how good they are and how wonderful, and appreciate, because that was sort of what the guy was talking about. Like, we sit out by the pool and we talk about going to London and seeing the singer and all this stuff and rapping through all this. So you milk. When things are not good, you go general. You stay real general of like, lots can happen. You're not specific because the specifics may suck right now to your ego mind. So you go super general of like, all things are held perfectly in the hands of God, right? I don't need to know I don't even know what anything, including this, means. Therefore, I was doing that one. I don't know what this means. I'm just like, oh, you go super fucking general. When it's good, you get real specific about milking it. When it doesn't, then you go real general of like, okay, these are all things that I don't want to do, that I don't want to face, but All things are held perfectly in the hands of God. God is on the field. You go super general with soothing yourself to a better feeling place. I don't know how it's going to work. That's none of my business. It's going to be real interesting to see how Spirit unfolds all of this while I keep showing up with a good attitude. You just stay in that place because you don't know the specifics, right? The specifics right now are not to your liking. Right? I don't want to wait in the ER waiting room. I don't want to be sitting here with my big swollen eye. Why is it that all these people look like they're dying to me and they're all looking at me horrified? This is not what I wanted today. It's not the day that I had planned for myself today. Right? So you go into that very general. I mean, because even I am the least germ-phobic person you'll ever meet. And even I was sitting there thinking, am I getting Ebola while I'm sitting here? They're all obsessed about Ebola. They've asked everybody about Ebola. I mean, is this an Ebola breeding ground? Like, you just, your mind just will go crazy. It will just go fucking crazy. And I had gone to the doctors and had my blood pressure taken, and they didn't say anything there. But they'd given me forms and stuff, so I was able to look at it later. And I saw that it was a little bit high. Well, of course, I had walked in 85-degree heat up a hill to Sunset Boulevard. So by the time I got down to the ER, and I'd been sitting in the waiting room for like an hour or so, and then triage talks to you when you first come in, but then you go into triage later for them to evaluate, and then they take your blood pressure and weigh and all that stuff. So I'm in there, and she goes, oh, and you have high blood pressure, right? And I go, no. And she goes, well, it's high now. It's 150 over blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm in the emergency room. Like, that raises your fucking blood pressure, okay? Like, when you're in the ER, you're not super fucking calm. Or they're asking me if I've been to this country and have Ebola, my eye's falling out, so my blood pressure's a little high. I walk 2 miles here in 85-degree heat. Kind of raises your blood pressure. So all this shit is coming in, and you're going, now, how are you going to respond to it? How are you going to respond to what's happening? Because your mind will tell you, this is not the day I'm supposed to be having. The day I'm supposed to be having is blah, 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 blah. But I was conscious all through it, even in times when I didn't like it. I was so conscious of, oh, this is exactly what's supposed to be happening, because this is exactly what I don't want to have happen. Therefore, this is the block. Now, let me just cue you in on something that'll save you a whole lot of fucking suffering. This is something we learned early on in Terry Cole Whitaker Ministries. Like, right away you learn that you don't have to do any of this stuff. Because if you're willing, they used to fuck with us over that too. Like, when you were volunteering or something, they would ask you to do something horrible, and if you didn't want to do it, they'd make you do it. But if you were okay with it, then a lot of times you wouldn't have to do it. So they'd go like, okay, well, we're meeting in this place. We've never met here before. It's like it's a rec center in a park. You have to go clean the toilets. And you'd be like, fuck. Like, I have my suit on, and So if you showed any resistance, you had to clean the fucking toilet. But if you would go, oh yeah, I'm willing, I'll do it, then they'd usually go, we'll get someone else to do it. Because they just wanted to see if you were really learning about how what you defend against, you create. So there's a line that's not in the actual course, but that is in Absence from Felicity, where Helen actually says that. There's something that happens between her and Bill because she was so resistant through so much of the process. I mean, it's so amazing that it's such a huge book considering how resistant she was. You know what I'm saying? Like, how much she did with that much resistance. That's why I'm saying earlier when I said we tend to think we have this huge wall that blocks everything. No, even with all the resistance she had, she was able to produce 1,200 pages of fucking brilliant material. So that's why I'm saying our lives, we have a lot of good in our lives, and yet just those little bits of resistance are enough to keep out that next level of experiencing more life, right? So there's a line in that book, Absence from Felicity, where, and I think it was something about Bill and her letting something go that she normally wouldn't have let go of, and so she didn't actually have to do the thing she didn't want to do or whatever. And so the line that's in that book says something like, if you're willing, you don't have to pay. That's fucking brilliant. If you're willing, you don't have to pay. And I thought, if I didn't have this resistance to all of this, probably I would have gone up to the doctors. They would have just said, we're just going to put you on oral antibiotics and come see us in 2 days and we'll see where we are. And it would, and by the 2 days it would have started to go down. Everything would have been different. But it was that inner, like, oh no, as long as you have this resistance in you of I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that, I don't want to, then you're going to have to keep walking while you're dissolving your resistance. Right? Or you could just give right away. You could just surrender immediately of like, I don't want to do that, but I'm willing, and mean it. Then a lot of times you don't have to pay. You're like, I'm willing, you know, to look full to what, I mean, just the amazing little, just that, it is just a little tiny shift in seeing that shows you a whole other dimension of the world. Now there's so many more than that, but just a little shift shows you a whole other dimension if you're just willing. I posted today, like, because once you shift, then you shift. Like, the vision of one world costs you the vision of the other. So if you're in the place of, the worse it gets, but I'm trying to learn this lesson so it won't get any worse, you're fucked. Because you're believing it's worse. Then everything is tying into that. As soon as you shift into, the better it gets, isn't it amazing how this all has worked out? The timing of it, I was right here and there, and I walked down there, and it was such a nice day, and, you know, Zan was getting off work at the perfect time, and he stayed after work to see me, and da-da-da, all this stuff. So, this person hugged me, this person helped me, this person cares, all this stuff that was going on. And then I found out that 11 had closed and turned into a country fucking western bar with line dancing. I'm like, I have so, you know, you can go to Oil Can Harry's out in the valley, but you know, I won't fucking drive anywhere at night because I don't want to. I'm not willing. I want to have a more social life, but I don't want to. Right? I don't want to. I want it to be easier, more convenient. Well, just in the shifting of, I'm starting to do things that I don't want to do in order. There's a quote that I used to use. I can't even. Oh, maybe I have it here. Here it is, by Albert Gray. The successful person has the habit of doing things failures don't like to do. They don't like doing them either necessarily, but their disliking is subordinated to the strength of their purpose. Should I read it again? The successful person has the habit of doing things failures don't like to do. They don't like doing them either necessarily, but their disliking is subordinated to the strength of their purpose. That's the shift. You don't have to like it, but if your vision is powerful enough to draw you through the things you don't like doing. Right? So I'd gotten to the point where I was starting to say, I'm willing to do this, I'm willing to do that, I'm willing to feel foolish, I'm willing to da-da, I'm willing to all this stuff. To drive wherever it takes to drive. I mean, I had made this whole thing of, I'm going to start doing this, and I'm willing, and I look forward to it, and it's not going to be horrible, it's not going to be fearful. I'm shifting my perception. The better it gets. And sure enough, the Country Western Bar came to me. That's what I mean when I say, if you're willing, you don't have to pay. You start to see that the shift in vision is what's already here. The thing we were going to go in search of, the thing we were looking for is probably already here, but we've said not that for whatever reason. Not that, not that, not that. It's too, you're too this, you're not enough that, it doesn't fit my pictures, it's going to be uncomfortable, whatever it is, where you just go, what the fuck am I waiting for? I go, really? If I really mean that I want to get more out of life, then I'm going to have to change internally in what I'm willing to face, what I'm willing to go through. This is not a horrible thing. This is a good thing. Let me see what else I was going to tell you. Oh, I like this. Treatment, our spiritual mind treatment, is not using God to get or do anything. It is the intelligent use of law by directing our energy. That's what I love about that. Raymond Charles Barker book is he keeps talking about intelligence, this divine intelligence. It is the intelligent use of law to direct our energy. That's why I was saying this power, we're already using it. Let's talk about how to use it more joyfully. How to direct our energy. And that's all mind is, that's all thought is the directing of our own thinking, and how whatever we are thinking, that's what produces how we feel. It's what produces our vibration in this moment. Doesn't, it's like, we talked last week again about Zan and her mother. It's like there was her mother in that home, and she just soothed her mother into a better feeling story about the home she was in. I don't think I'm learning anything in this school, am I? Yes, you love her. Oh, yes, I do. It's like, it didn't change where she was. She still was where she was. It just changed her story about where she was. And that's what that means. The intelligent use of our own mind then begins to kick law into motion. It's already happening anyhow. It's just whether we're using it consciously or unconsciously. If we're in the level of, this is a really hard experience, but I'm getting through it because of my metaphysical toolbox, then you're fucked, because what you're creating is, this is a bad experience I'm getting through. But if you're telling the story of, whatever's happening, it's a wonderful lesson for me to learn, and I'm a joyful learner. I don't have to like it, I don't have to enjoy it, but I can always find the positive aspects of it. There's always, the Course in Miracles says, the ego literally lives by comparison. But what I've noticed is, it always lives by the wrong comparison. It is always comparing you to someone who's better off than you are. It's always comparing in the wrong direction. It's like, instead of going, it could be so much worse, we're thinking about, like, someone I know, his mother would say, and this was like at a big Sunday dinner, and this guy, his mother said, and he was very status oriented and very like about having money and having this and the right friends and the right car and being somebody and all this stuff. But his mother was very the opposite of that. She was very like simple, doing her gardening and all this stuff. And so at Sunday dinner she said, when I get into bed at night, I just think how wonderful it is, my mattress and my comforter, and how grateful I am to live here in my own house, and blah, blah, blah. And her son said, I just think of that bitch Ivana Trump sleeping on satin sheets. And it was like, yeah, I know. I know. Like, so here it is 25 years later, and his life is a result of the depression and horror of a life lived comparing yourself always to the wrong people, basically. People that you think have more than you, to some ideal that the culture set up that has nothing to do with reality at all, instead of his mother comparing herself with people who don't have a bed to sleep in, people who are homeless tonight, people who, like, all of this stuff made her happy. And that really is it. I mean, if the ego is going to compare, at least let us fucking go in a direction that feels better instead of one that feels worse. That's why that genius, the simplicity of these things, where Abraham will say, is that an upstream thought or a downstream thought? Like this, so simple in any given moment. Just say, what I'm thinking now, is that an upstream thought where I'm swimming against the current and struggling and striving? Or is that a downstream thought where I'm floating with the current, enjoying the journey? How fucking simple is that? Where you just, what I'm thinking right now, is that an upstream thought or a down? That's so much easier because it doesn't have any of the charge of, is it a spiritual thought or an unspiritual thought? Is it a loving thought or a fearful thought? It's like, is that just upstream or downstream? Okay, comparing myself to somebody who I don't even know, who has, all this stuff that I've made up a story that they're happier than I am because of all this stuff that's making me feel, or thinking as I did, thank God. I mean, because I did. I sat there in the ER room, and I thought, thank God, like I'm here in Los Angeles, in like cutting edge medical technology and all this stuff, where I could be, because I was actually thinking about Johnny being on vacation and jumping off that cliff and then breaking his arm in where nobody spoke English and all this shit, and him going and just all the fucked up shit that happened to his arm for a year and a half after that, because he was somewhere where in Mexico where he couldn't get the medical attention that he needed. And I thought, here I am, blocks away from the hospital, walking there. So always you can tell yourself a story that feels better or feels worse. And usually it is based on some comparison, either to somebody else that you think is better off than you, or comparing yourself to some idealized version of where you think you should be by now. Some mythical story of how my life was supposed to fucking turn out. It's like, oh, okay, where did we get that shit? Like, by now I'm supposed to blah, blah, blah. Like, that oftentimes can be the comparison where it's like, well, why don't I just look at, I mean, there was a great little part of the Mary Tyler Moore Show where that crazy idiot Ted Baxter was talking, and I can't even remember why, but Mary was depressed. And you know, Mary was never fucking depressed, but Mary was all depressed. And he said, Mary, I know what you mean, because I went through that once too, where you get up in the morning and you just brush your teeth and you eat your breakfast and have your coffee and you go to work and you see the same people you always see and you do your job and then you drive home to your apartment and you eat your dinner and you take a shower and you go to bed, and it's just the same every day. And she said, yeah, that's it exactly, Ted. What did you do? How did you get out of it? He said, well, I realized that I could get up in the morning and brush my teeth and eat my breakfast and have my coffee and drive to work and see the people I see every day and do my job and go home to my apartment and eat my dinner and take a shower and go to bed. Which, of course, was no help to her at all. But he knew what he meant was just, nothing changed at all, except that way that he felt about the story. That he just decided, I'm just going to be happy about this instead of being unhappy about this. And it sounds so fucking simple. And the simplicity is very difficult for twisted minds. So that's why it's like the gift of being there by myself was perfect, because like I said, if I'd had someone next to me who was spouting metaphysical truth, simple metaphysical truth to me, I would have punched him in the face. Right? Because your ego wants this to be hard and complicated. It's okay, let me soothe myself. And that's true for most people. We're much better at soothing ourselves. And that's why I hardly ever give anyone advice unless I'm drinking. All bets are off after the first glass of wine. Don't even say anything to me. Where it seems like you're asking for advice, because I'm going to tell you exactly what I fucking think. But if I'm sober, you can talk and talk and talk, and I'm not going to tell you what I think about it unless you say, Jacob, what do you think I should do about this? Otherwise, I'm just going to say, oh, that must be hard. Because what I know is people will then soothe themselves. As soon as someone feels heard and understood, then they will take their own emotional journey, which is what you want anyhow. Once you get in the trap of taking people's emotional journey for them, you're screwed. Now, that's really the definition of a codependent relationship, is I'm the one that has to make you feel a certain way. But all of us have it within us to take our own emotional journey, and particularly once this is part of the whole essence of that whole men are from Mars and women are from Venus, was John Gray teaching men to not fix women's problems. Because that's what men are used to thinking, is like, well, she's telling me this, she wants to know what I think. So she's saying blah, 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 so I'm going to tell her what to do about it. And of course, what women would hear is, you're judging me, you don't understand how I feel, so that would result in a fight. He thinks he's helping, and now we're fighting. So John Gray taught men to say, is there anything I can do that must really feel bad? And then the women would soothe themselves. They go, well, it is hard, and it is, but you know what? I think it's going to be okay because blah, 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 blah. Holy shit. Talk about easy. Like now, all that is dissolved. No fight, no nothing. Everybody feels good, and 5 minutes is over. Instead of this big, long, drawn-out thing. So that's why, when we start to get to the place of like, it's up to me to take my emotional journey myself. What we want is for the situation to do it for us. I want the situation to change so I'll feel good. But that's so hard. That's so, forcing love to work. I want the situation, then I'll feel good. Instead of saying, I'll make myself feel good. Then when I begin to work on the situation, I have a whole different energy that I'm bringing to it. I'm not at war with it, right? It's like, if I shift my vibration and my consciousness, I'm still going to go to the doctors and take the antibiotics and do all of that stuff. But because my consciousness and attitude is different, because listen, I was so fucking tempted to go into, they don't know what they're fucking doing here. I don't know if you've ever felt that way. Like everybody, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. They're just passing me from place to place. They don't know what they're doing. I don't know. This ophthalmologist I saw was like 11 years old. He came in like, if he hadn't had a beard, he would have looked like a grade school kid. And he's doing all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening. And at times I was tempted to go into that. And I realized that will put you in probably close to death with some kind of bacterial infection that's killing you. So I right away, as soon as I realized that, I went straight into, I have the most amazing medical team. These people know exactly what they're doing. They are fabulous. They are state-of-the-art doctors. They are blah, 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 blah. I went straight into how lucky that I have this doctor and this doctor and this. Listen, I said, I hadn't seen a doctor in 10 years, and in 2 days I'd seen every fucking doctor in LA, it seemed like. And I just started going into that place of, if you start judging them and telling a story about how they don't know what they're doing, that is the perfect way to end up near death in the hospital. Because whatever you believe and tell the story of, you're going to start activating that in your life. Or you can go the opposite way. Everybody here is doing a great job. And even if it doesn't, this is why, this is the beauty of Byron Katie, is that even when it all falls apart, then you go, I've been spared. You don't go, why didn't it work? Why didn't that happen? Oh my God, I thought we were going to be together forever and blah, 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 blah. It all falls apart. You go, I was fucking spared. Because that's the story you tell yourself then. You can tell the story of, what a loss, and this and that. Or you can tell the story of, oh, this is sad, it's hurting me, it's hard to go through, but I was spared. There's something better coming along. This was not the right thing, because if it was the right thing, it would be happening. When Mary Ann found out that she was pregnant, this spiritual leader who's going to be an unwed mother, right? Who's just now sort of starting to hit the big time. And because that was the first, in the People magazine article, it's so interesting. That's the only time it was ever mentioned that I know of her being an unwed single mother. Because she just shifted in her consciousness. No one ever brought it up anymore after that. But that was, certainly one issue, and she was a single mother and all this stuff. And so she said, when I told my girlfriend about it, she said, I'm pregnant. And she said, that's wonderful. And I said, really? How do you know? And she said, because it's happening. It's like, that's that shift of like, that's that Byron Katie thing of, well, it's happening. It must be good because it's happening. I've decided how I want to feel. So that's the story I'm going to tell myself, is whatever is in alignment with me feeling that way. All right? Okay, I've badgered you enough for one night.